Now, another sad note. It's recently been a year since Maddy Cusack tragically passed away. And Paul, today there was an article came out with her brother, wasn't there? But unfortunately behind a paywall, but you were so kind to share it with all of us. Do you want to give us a brief overview about why that article was so important that it came to attention?
I mean, it was horrific, like not in a article quality way, because it was written by Ben Mumsby, who is a Telegraph journalist, and it was basically an interview with Maddy Cusack's brother, Richard. And Richard has been an incredibly classy individual all year. In fact, he's kind of, to some degree, taken on the role of spokesperson for the family, because whenever there have been discussions, obviously her mum and her dad have talked a bit, but he is kind of there, and he was very much the person, I got the impression, who was the front man, if you like, of the MC8 Foundation, which is doing amazing work, by the way, everybody. For anyone who is unaware, the foundation set up in Maddy Cusack's memory, which you can find at MC8_Foundation, I think, on Twitter. I might have to double check that, but we've got to give them a plug for that one. Also, as a Sky Blue, I want to pay tribute to a former Sky Blue fan favourite. Simon in the chat will say this: Gustavo Hamer, who, on scoring for Sheffield United at the weekend, paid tribute to Maddy Cusack. Did the whole lift his shirt, and it had the jersey with MC8 on it and all sorts.
Yeah, I saw that. That was a really, really lovely touch, yeah.
Which I thought was lovely. But yeah, Richard has been the voice. I believe he is Maddy's younger brother, possibly, by a year or so, because it's a big family, because there's Maddy and then there's two sisters as well, who are younger and who have been very much involved. But Richard, as the brother, has kind of taken on the role. And he did basically today, this is all leading up to the fact that it was an interview with him. And it's rare for him, because the interview actually stated he's maintained, it was described as a dignified silence throughout the year. But he'd finally decided to do this interview today and open up because he feels, as the family do, that women's football doesn't want to talk about Maddy anymore. And there was actually a quote in it that he was saying, it feels like a lot of the people in women's football want this to go away, because whenever it's mentioned, it's almost the thing we've complained about on here sometimes: don't say anything negative about women's football. And obviously this is very much a thing hanging over it. And it's a harrowing piece. He talks about the experience of finding out that his sister had passed away and being in the house while his mum and Gran were both obviously wailing, and he was downstairs and Maddy was upstairs, and actually being asked, do you want to go and see your sister? And saying, you know, how this is, sorry if this is, I probably should have put a trigger warning on this actually, because for mentions of suicide or whatever. But basically it was, you know, I am a big bluff, sarky Midlander, cynical as anything. And if I'm reading this at work with tears in my eyes going, this is unimaginable, like genuinely. And he openly said, you know, if I couldn't have dealt with it, because presumably the journalist had asked him something like, how do you deal with it? How are you? And his quote was, if I couldn't deal with it, I wouldn't still be here. I'd have just said, fuck it, I'm off. See ya. And it was obvious what he was referring to. You know, basically following his sister. And just the whole tone of it. It was a lot of very quiet, focused fury about how women's football has basically completely forgotten Maddy, and there's all these tributes and there's all the showy stuff. But he said something along the lines of, we have to trust the FA until we're given reason not to, with this inquiry, which has taken 9 months. And I think there was a quote in there where he basically said something along the lines of, we know what happened. We know what Jonathan Morgan did because we spoke to Maddy about it, and hopefully the truth will come out. And that, you know, you're looking at it going, but the main part of it was just, it was an incredible piece because it was an incredibly brave piece from a brother who had lost his sister, just letting out this very polite, very quiet, but very clear cry of anger against women's football and saying, listen, this has happened. We need to talk about it. Don't push it under the carpet. And just the whole tone of it. It was one. If you can read it, I'm amazed it's behind a paywall. Like, I wonder if there's a way for us to take the text and stick it on the Absolute Football Twitter and just say, here's the text of the article we were talking about, because I think everyone in women's football needs to read it. And I said that on Twitter.
Yeah, there needs to be a definite reminder, doesn't there? Because it seems like, and not just with Maddy, with so many things, it's very much once a year they'll send tributes, then the rest of the year it's just forgotten about and not mentioned. This is such a awful tragedy to occur. It cannot be forgotten, and it needs people to keep talking about it, keep fundraising, keep doing it. And Chris put in the chat, I think it is MC8 Foundation if you do want to go give them a follow. But yeah, if you can, like Paul said, please do give it a read, because it shows that there are still a lot of failings in the women's game. And just because there are so many successes at the minute shows that you shouldn't think everything's all fine and rosy and through tinted glasses, because there's still so much to do, especially at those low levels as well.
I just thought it was just Richard Cusack just comes across as well, the whole family do, but he in particular with that interview just comes across as an incredibly strong individual. Like having to deal with that and the way he's talked about it. And I think, you know, Graham says screenshot it and post it that way. I might do that, or I might post the chat or something and share it, and just because it's one of those articles, and I don't think I'm overselling it here, because I sound like I'm overselling it, and there's a tendency for me to go a bit over the top. But in this case, believe me, you can probably tell by my tone of voice, not getting wound up and angry, and the seriousness, that this is something that everyone should go and read.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because it is, I think people need, as uncomfortable as it might be for some people, it needs to be talked about. So hopefully with us bringing it to the fore, bringing it to attention, and thank you, Paul, for that, then hopefully that awareness will still spread and will keep to the foreground of people's minds, and that she definitely, you know, she won't be forgotten, and neither will anyone else who's been in this unfortunate situation as well. So yeah, so thank you for listening to that, everyone. We just really wanted to make sure we got that across this evening.